Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil, episode 89. Today's topic, let's take a look at magic systems. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. So today we want to talk a little bit about magic systems, and I have a bit before in episode 53 where I talk a little bit about those again, because for me that covers most instances of magic and systems. Because really a magic system is really just a name that you've come up with, and it's a series of things that are applied to anything that you call magic.
See, when you talk about a magic system, I immediately think of games because systems makes me think numbers, makes me think mechanical application, as opposed to if someone's writing a book, their magic, I'm using air quotes, system is not necessarily a system per se as it is an idea of the governing force of magic within the context of the fiction.
So a governing force, sort of a systematic way that it works.
I just don't think system is quite the right word if you're just writing a story.
It is, but it's not going to be as complex as like a system for D&D. You don't need to know how much fatigue, exactly per spell.
But I think that they should know.
In general.
I think that if you're going to have a fantasy magic system, I think if you take the ideas, the concepts that they apply in a game, that's a good background to have for your story. Like you don't have to use it, but having it back there will make the magic, in my opinion, again, getting back to the gardener architect. I think that structure behind the fiction makes it more solid because then you know what's going on. And
I think if a writer is struggling with a magic system, role-playing games or video games are great inspiration. Or you can go to the real world, look at a couple forms of real magic. Supposedly on Earth would be runic magic from the Norse. Tarot cards would be a real form of magic. Magicians, not so much.
See, I would say that magician's magic is way more real than tarot cards. Tarot cards is BSing, whereas magicians, there's actually a skill involved there. Sleight of hand, mechanical engineering, lots of intelligence, as opposed to just me sitting down to a tarot card reader, which my wife likes doing those. Every time we've gone, I have purposefully thrown the tarot card reader off. I'd be like, oh, could you, I'm really worried about my younger brother. Could you tell me about my younger brother? Oh, yeah, he's in trouble now. I don't have a younger brother, but she proceeded to tell me all about my younger brother. Which is
but there's this idea in tarot card reading for people who are doing it today, your psychic readers, whether they're channelers or whatever. And they're really... it's what magicians would call cold calling. So they're actually reading the person. Or
mentalism.
Any form of mentalism really is. I mean, I think when you talk about someone like the Amazing Randy or like Penn and Jillette who kind of go after this stuff once in a while, what happens is they really get focused in on, we're all liars, but some of us are honest about it. And those are magicians. And then other people who try to make the livelihood, they're considered not. And I'm not saying whether or not there's no spiritualism in the world. I'm not making a comment on that.
My comment is, I believe there is some spiritualism in the world. I don't believe the tarot card readers are there. Like,
it's not like a Mattel board game like Ouija, which is real.
Yes, the Mattel game Ouija is real, but tarot card.
And I'm not sure if that's Mattel or not, but
I believe it. I think it might be Milton Bradley.
Yeah, one of those two would have to be. But
isn't that one's up here? And it's the one.
It's the one in
Connecticut, Enfield,
or
East Longmeadow, Agawam. Whatever.
So. Same area, basically.
None of this has to do with magic systems. You're talking about real world versus...
But in a way, those have a long history, astrology, have a long history in this world of being magic systems. Whether or not you believe they work is irrelevant. The thing is, behind there's a mechanics behind it. So, and for those of you who believe, I'm sorry, you're never going to convince me. I don't think you're convinced Michael. He sounds kind of skeptical on it, too.
I want to believe it. Like, I want to, but I am very skeptical.
Yeah.
And I've watched An Honest Liar. And,
Yeah, which is actually a good movie.
It's a great movie.
If you are principally opposed to skeptics, I would not watch it, though.
Yeah.
However, but the point is, look to the inspiration in either the real world or in other things to come up with your own system. And I have 3 generic systems that I use in my world. And
are we going to talk about the mechanics or the basis of?
More the mechanics,
Okay.
because in my world, the way it is, cultures change the look of it. And it's probably caused, like, in the first one I call Extra Magical, which is a really lame name. And at some point I'll come up with a better name than Extra Magical.
I think Extra Magical is great. I want Extra Magical in all of my worldly things. How's your car doing today? Got it repaired? It's Extra Magical now.
I have my Android phone +2.
That sandwich looks good. It's Extra Magical.
But the idea is with that, it's what we would call on Earth shamanism. And it's this idea where there are special places on the planet. There are special rituals in which you interact with spirits. Your skill as the caster, quote unquote, is that you know the rituals.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that, sorry, I know I'm interrupting. Does that mean anyone could be that person? Okay, so if you learn the rituals, you can become this.
And there might be other things in the world that make certain people better at it.
Mm-hmm.
The idea, like, if channeling's real, there's probably a skill to it, but other people could get lucky.
Some people might have a natural affinity towards it.
Yes.
Like any talent. Some people are better swimmers naturally than others.
To say I'm a great basketball player.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was lying there. I'm a fiction writer and I lie.
There you go. Wait, was that the line?
Yeah, that was the line.
I am a fiction writer and I lie. So Extra Magical.
Mm-hmm. And really, I have 3 things of importance where I look at, and this is the cost to the system. There are rituals, there are location, and there's time. And you can always cheat.
Time investment? Or
time investment.
As opposed to time a day. Okay.
Yeah. But that would be the ritual.
That might be the ritual part. Yeah. My point is that you're talking about a amount of time.
Yes. Yeah. Like the amount of time to perform the ritual.
Right. Okay.
And now you can cheat. You can rush the words. You might be able to cut out a few parts of the ritual. Mm-hmm. And be able to pull it off. The thing is, there's a being involved, a spirit who's actually performing what you would call the magic. So you're not really performing the magic. So it's
more like you're making a request.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're requesting the spirit. This is like your voodoo magic, or you're summoning the bear spirit.
Well, yeah,
into your body.
Shamanism. Yeah.
So the thing is, you can cheat. Now, the limitation of this kind of magic is when it's slower. There's always rituals and they're rarely fast.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're going to yell fireball and then Hadouken.
Hadouken.
Yeah, that's not going to occur.
It does mean fireball, I believe.
It actually means flying dragon fist or something like
not
that.
Anymore. It's a fireball. I played the game.
Yeah, I did too. Hadouken does not mean fireball.
Play the game again because a fireball comes out.
I get that, but I mean the translation isn't fireball. It's like
it is now.
No, Hadouken is the what's he say with the dragon punch?
I don't remember. I'm just
you can. Yeah, that means rising dragon fist.
Yeah,
as opposed to fireball or Tatsumaki Senpuyuken.
Yeah,
which is like the hurricane kick.
Wow. You're frightening me right now.
I played a lot of Street Fighter.
Okay. And the other problem is when you're requesting help from people or really things.
So, yeah, you're not asking a person, you're asking the spirit.
You're asking a spirit.
Let's use the word spirit so we know that we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and in theory, when I say spirit, it could be anywhere from what we would call a devil or a demon to a more neutral sort of planetary spirit, like a river spirit, or what you would call a god. Mm-hmm. And usually gods and spirit magic are not good.
Oh, like if they get involved?
Yeah. And they're usually really powerful. But the problem is...
Hence God.
Yes. You're like saying, hey, God, go fetch the paper.
Hey, you might...
So...
Listen, I'd like this crop. It's, it's on my land and I know I only own 2 acres, but it's really important to me. So instead of babysitting the entirety of the planet, can I just have you focus on this one little patch?
Could you fertilize it for me, God?
Yeah, would you do that, God?
And so...
while you're at it, it's a little rain. A little rain would be nice.
Some spirits might not like being controlled.
I would imagine all of them.
Yes.
Well, at that point, are you controlling? Are you
that's
controlling?
That's the point of the ritual.
Okay.
So the thing is, if you don't do the ritual to their satisfaction, but you draw in a big boy, it could be bad.
Yeah.
And so that's why I look at it is the magic itself is happening, but the person who's asking for the magic is only asking for the magic. They're not performing the magic.
This is reminding me of a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's right on topic with the Skeleton Key.
Skeleton, I've not even heard of it.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Okay.
Ritualistic magic.
Okay.
Watch Skeleton Key.
The classic voodoo movies of the late 80s and early 90s.
This is
right in that vein.
This is right in that vein. It's a voodoo movie.
And I forget which movie it was, but one of those movies had
Louisiana,
a scene with the one in Haiti where
Serpent and the Rainbow.
Serpent and the Rainbow.
Yeah.
Is one of the most painful scenes. It literally put me on the ground.
I forget what happened. I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah.
You don't have to say.
We're not going to cover it. Just to warn you, though, if you watch that movie, especially if you're a guy, you might walk away limping. Okay.
So it probably has something to do with...
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
The nether regions.
Gotcha. Okay, so magical, extra magical. Is that what you meant? Extra magical?
Yes.
Extra magical.
And essentially, that was really inspired to me looking at spirit magic stuff, shamanism stuff.
Okay. So, ritual, location, and time. Your handwriting sucks today. I'm trying to read that.
Actually, my handwriting sucks every day, so you're right.
It's not my reading. It is your poor writing. You wrote the word location. It looks like cocaine, something like that. Those do not look like L's or C's.
One's only an L.
I know. Neither one of them looks like what they're supposed to be. Okay, so that's extra magical. Is this your next one? Innate? Okay, so innate.
So innate, and this one was inspired from Play Mage the Awakening.
See, I even wrote that down over here.
And this is the idea where magic is, and this sort of force in the universe, which is innately used by people. And
innately used by specific people who've been awakened and thus granted the ability to see that potential and manipulate it.
And you can play with those kind of rules when it's your world. And that's what makes it uniquely yours. Mine, I break down 3 things. You have to be able to think, speak, and perform an action to do magic in there. And the limitation, there are a couple limitations in my world for it. Mm-hmm. One of which is belief. People have to believe in it. This is the same power that gods use. And we talked a little about the gods before and how they require belief. Now, they use this on super steroids, but and dragons also use true magic in my world as well as what I call it in my world. True magic is what I call innate magic.
Okay.
And it's simply you're literally filtering the laws of physics through your body. The laws of the universe, you're filtering through your body, and you can manipulate them if you're good enough. And it's very freeform, it's very open, it's very powerful. But if people just don't buy it, and it's not simply as they know that you're a mage and they can just go, well, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
It's not that simple, but if people just generally don't believe it, it's harder to pull it off. If they do believe it, it's easier to pull off.
So do you mind if I go off on a tangent here about Mage?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
okay. So for listeners that are not familiar with Mage the Ascension, it's a tabletop role-playing game by White Wolf. They also did Vampire and what have you. And the thing that I really liked about their magic system is that it's free form, as opposed to you have to memorize a ritual. You have to have a certain amount of power, that it takes a toll on you physically to cast a given thing. Not that isn't built into the game. It is built a little into the game too. But what I liked about it is that it's more free form. So like if I have a power to manipulate matter, physical matter, then I just have to have an idea what I want to happen. Like say I want to change the shape of this piece of paper here. Then I have to, having physical contact with it, might have been a requirement. You have to have an idea of what's going to happen. And the thing that's big in Mage is because that there are game settings where it's in the medieval times. Well, in the medieval times, fictionally, of course, fireballs were common. Yeah. So someone could go fireball and blast a fireball and nobody would question it. But modern time, that stuff doesn't happen. So if someone yells fireball, they're just yelling fireball and no one expects anything to happen. So there's this concept of where you're in your magic system, you're talking about gods and you're making a request to gods. Mage takes it like you're making a request to the fabric of reality. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do something or attempt to do something that goes against the fabric of reality. Now, if there's enough people around that do believe it, it'll happen because they don't question that what I'm doing is possible. Yeah. Whereas if you're in a more modern society, yelling fireball and all of a sudden a gigantic fireball blasting out of my hands, people aren't going to buy that. Yeah. And subsequently, reality, even if I pushed it and made it happen, I made it happen. But reality's like, oh, no. Yeah. And it's going to punish you for it. And you get what's called...
that's one of the big limitations in that system is don't make reality mad.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Don't make reality mad. Yep. So when you were saying something in your system where you had to have like something... Belief with mage, you need things to be, there's static magic and there's vulgar magic. Static magic is coincidental. Yeah. So like I had a thing, they weren't quite spells in mage, they were called rotes. So I had a thing called swing and a miss. Yeah. If somebody came to swing a weapon at me, let's say they're 3 feet away from me and they're swinging a 3-foot baseball bat at me. Well, their arms are about 2 feet long. The bat is 3 feet long. Yes. That's a 5-foot swing radius, and I'm well within that radius. So when they swing the baseball bat at me, it should hit me, right? I would cast a thing called swing and a miss. That was my spell, if you will, but a rote. If I just stood there, what I'm actually manipulating, what the power of the character had, I'm actually manipulating the distance between the baseball bat and myself. Yes. I am taking that distance, which is actually less than the distance between us, so the bat should hit me. And I'm creating an infinite amount of space between the baseball bat and me, which means even though I'm within striking distance, the bat can't possibly hit me. So they swing, and to them, whatever might look like happened. Like they can't process it because they know the bat should hit me, but they fully swing right through where I was standing and the bat didn't hit me. Yeah. Now, maybe it looked like it passed through me. Maybe it... who knows what their brain made them perceive it. That would be vulgar. Yeah. Because it should have hit me. Yep. Now, what I would do to make it coincidental is I would dodge. I would move backwards real quick. Yeah. And cast the spell. And thus, even though it should have hit me, well, he dodged. So clearly he got himself out of the way quick enough. Yeah. And that made it coincidental. So I'm not being violent against reality.
I would do it the Columbo way, and it would look like I would stumble and fall, and the bat would swing over me.
Well, yeah, anything like that. But it's that physical action that, because of the magic, is unnecessary, is what makes the magic happen more fluidly. Yeah. And that's part of the system. So it's not necessarily I need to learn spells and I need to come up with clever ways to manipulate my powers. It's that you need ways to make it make something extraordinary look coincidental. So stuff like that. Like, I love that system. Yeah. That system, I love that system.
My idea of innate magic was completely inspired off of that. There are some differences on the mechanic side. There's no such thing as static magic. And obviously it's based off of belief. And it's more of an area belief, because there was another thing too, where if you're doing vulgar magic in Mage of the Ascension, but you were like in a room by yourself, it was different than if you were in a ball stadium. If you're in a baseball stadium, it's much harder to get away with vulgar magic because there's
a lot of witnesses. And
witnesses do not affect it in my world. It's about the area you're in and what is the belief. It's not about necessarily even what individuals think who are perceiving it. So, but the other limitation of mine is it actually suffers the limitations of the other magical systems, because the reality of magic, in air quotes, in my universe is it all flows from reality. So it is the laws of the universe that's happening.
Magic is the law. It's part of the law of existence.
Yeah, well, it's a way to manipulate the laws. And so the idea is if you use innate magic to interact with a spirit or a god, they might have the same opinions of you as if you were using spirit magic. So you might have those kind of drawbacks. Or there's an energy consumption form in the next one, which we'll get more into. That will also possibly be a consequence to you using innate magic. It all depends on the scenario. And like I said, it's a lot more free form. But that's kind of it there in a nutshell. But the idea is, once again, it's the actual things that make it work are being able to think it through.
Think it through,
and speak it.
Yeah.
And then an action. And
a physical action.
A physical action. Okay. And once again, you can make little shortcuts and stuff, which makes it either easier, not necessarily easier to perform, but quicker to do. And this is by far the quickest form of magic in my world. But the
ritualistic is the quickest form, or you're referencing
the innate magic
form.
Is the fastest form of magic, because I like to be able to think it, speak it, and act it.
Okay.
And you can cut things out to make it quicker. But once again, like from a systems standpoint, once you start cutting things out, it becomes more complicated to pull off.
Riskier, yeah.
Then the last one is learn magic, which this is obviously completely inspired from
D&D
and GURPS magic.
Yeah.
And the idea is it's you learn a spell, and for me, it's very culturally different. Like some cultures do it different than other cultures. Like in the Bedraken culture, which we talked about a little bit, and it's like runic magic, but they what they'll do is they'll carve it into pieces of wood.
Yeah.
And then they'll break the wood, which will store the spell literally. And when they break it, they're releasing the spell. So they'll actually.
So it's like creating a scroll, kind of.
Kind of like creating a scroll, yeah. And they don't necessarily need those to do magic, but it's one of the more common ways, because it's like you're storing it up for future use. It's like in D&D memorizing the spell. Mm-hmm. Except you're not keeping it up here. And then you can maybe do that too, because it's literally a formula that they're following that they've learned. And they need some ability to do it.
So do they just carve it in the piece of wood, or are they like infusing the piece of wood?
They're infusing the wood. The ritual is for them.
Okay, you didn't say ritual. That's why I was asking there.
And essentially, and I put it up there, it says think, but that's not correct. But it's essentially you have to say it, then you shape it, and then you summon it.
Okay.
So you have to be able to say it, and that doesn't necessarily mean verbally. It could be in written form or whatever.
Okay.
But it's literally a formula that you're doing of words. And those words will actually will give you the ability, if you have the ability to shape magic.
It's like a recipe for magic. So almost a science of magic.
Yes. It's the science of it. And you learn how to manipulate. There are some innate abilities you need to have to be able to do it. Not anyone can do it. And that's one of the ideas from GURPS that I gained. And it sort of ties all three of the forms of magic together too, because if you're in a certain ritual location, it stores more magic naturally. That's the reason why the spirit people go there to do it. The shaman people go there to do it. People, if they know the formula and can't normally cast magic, can go to one of those areas and possibly perform magic there.
But at that point, is it coincidental because they're not doing the same thing?
They know the formula, but it doesn't work for them normally. But they go to the area, the shaman area. They can perform it there because there's a little bit more magic residue.
A little more mojo.
Yeah. A little more mojo in that area. So, and for GURPS players, it would be a mana high area.
Mana high area, yeah. Everything that you're saying is reminding me of a story I wrote, which actually occurred, unbeknownst to you, within your world.
Oh, excellent.
So when we've referenced Yasad before. Yasad was a mage in your world in a game that you ran for me and a bunch of friends of ours. And the story that I wrote took place with the character when he was not with the group. He basically went to a secret area. Can I say anything about your secret stuff? Like, I don't want to give something away that might be in the book.
Sure.
It has to do with underground in Highwall.
Yeah, you can talk about that. That's fine.
I can talk about the people that train there is what I wanted to mention. It's okay. Okay, yeah, so sure. The Red Leaves.
I don't remember.
The Red Leaves.
The Crimson Leaves.
Crimson Leaves. Okay, so it's okay for me to say that. All right. So the Crimson Leaves are a group of elite soldiers or assassins.
Probably the closest modern day analogy would be like
the SEALs,
Special Forces.
Special Forces. Okay. Well, I wrote this whole story that was about Yasad had been hired to go down there to heal training Crimson Leaves.
Yeah.
And he was not the only one. Of course, there's many Leaves being trained, so they needed many magic users to help heal them. And the exercise that they were partaking in was severing limbs, and the Crimson Leaf will so I will just say soldier to make it easier. So the soldier would forcibly have a limb cut off.
Oof.
and they would have to continue fighting. The goal was for them to get to the point where they would continue attacking despite savage wounds.
Okay. Well,
most of the time, of course, immediately upon losing their arm, they drop to the ground in absolute agony. But they would have to then a healer would come over, reattach the limb, and say, "Get back in line."
That's right.
And they would just rinse and repeat this process over and over and over again. The part about where the magic comes in big is because he was in this group. There was a whole bunch of soldiers. There was 3 magic users, and I was displaying the variety of magic. So there was one guy who was like your shaman. Mm-hmm. He was doing a ritual and whatever, and then he would, reattach the limb. And there was another guy who was definitely, I called him the flesh mechanic. So like what he did is he actually, this guy had his arm severed cleanly through the bicep. Mm-hmm. So what he did is he came over, the guy's screaming or whatever, and this guy gets right in the meat. He grabs the muscle, like right where it's severed, right? You got a flat, clean cut right through the bicep. And he drags the muscle and the tissue away. He slides the muscle up the bone like it were a shirt sleeve. Yeah. So now there's just exposed, severed bone. And then he grabs the arm and does the same thing. He pulls the flesh down so it's out of the way. And then he reattaches at the bone level. And then he pushes the meat. So the meat's getting back together. He's sliding it up the bone to get it back together. And then he reconnects the sinew and the muscle and the tendons and everything. And then finally, he cleanly seams the skin.
And from the sounds of that would fall to what I would call innate magic in my world.
Okay. Yeah. And now the thing about Yesod is that Yesod is a faith healer. Mm-hmm. So with him, and it might not work the way your systems work, but for the purposes of the story, he has an innate ability that he cultivated. He doesn't actually realize at this point in time in the story what he's doing, but what he's actually doing is healing them on a spiritual level.
Yes.
So like the concept is that you have your physical body and you have your spirit form, which is identical to your physical body.
Yes.
So what happens is if you cut off your arm and your arm is gone and you still feel pain in the hand that is now missing, that's because the spirit is in pain. The spirit is still there. That's what you feel or what you think you feel. So that's how.
So real phantom pain.
Actually genuine phantom pain. Exactly. So what he's doing is he's actually healing the person on the spirit level and the body falls in kind.
Okay.
So he heals the spirit and then physically the body fixes itself the way it's supposed to. But he's able to do it very quickly. Yeah. And the thing that was really neat in the story is that everyone's watching each other work, and the other 2 magic users, they do their thing and they've both seen this sort of thing before. But then a couple of them are seeing what he's doing and they're like, whoa, like that's not common.
Yeah. They're
aware of such things. Maybe one of them has seen something like that before, but probably not in a really, really long time because this type of faith healer is rare. Yeah. So at least for the purposes of my story, it was, I don't know if it is actually rare.
In the world, the only other faith healer in my world was actually a character I played. Technically, it was in Matt's world, but there was a connection. Mm-hmm. And I was playing a Minotaur faith healer. And Minotaurs with a very Northman style.
I think I know this guy. Yeah, keep going. I remember this.
And he was interesting, and most people would not take him up.
I want to tell the listeners, Jeff and I are like looking at each other across the table, and I'm remembering this character, and I won't give it away. But all I did was I kind of looked at him and smiled and raised a clenched fist, which Jeff acknowledged, meaning yes, you're remembering the right character. Yes. All right, so keep going. So think Minotaur. Think 9-foot muscle bound dude.
Yes, with a love for fighting and raiding, and his form of faith healing was he would punch you as hard as he could in the affected area. Now, you would take the full damage
of a 9-foot Minotaur punching you as hard as he can, which could kill a human. That could kill a human.
Yes. And if you survived, your ailment would go away no matter what it was. So you got brain cancer,
and you wouldn't lose, and you wouldn't.
The health would be back too.
As well, the damage that he did to you would also not be there.
Your ills would be gone if you survived the punch. And so many people would not take him up on offers. And it's such a joke now that I even, today, if I see my friends, if they're talking about not feeling good, I'll offer to punch them in the back and make them feel better. Because that was always the joke. That became the joke that came out of it was he'll punch you in the back and make you feel better. And to this day, people will remember because it was a unique application. Because usually it's a little bit more friendly in the approach. Like, Yassad's at a very friendly, what you think of as a healer.
Very sensitive, very compassionate.
Yes. And mine was just the utter opposite. It was a lot of fun to play, but didn't get a lot of business.
He probably would have been fine in the Leaves. They probably would have enjoyed him.
Yes.
In the Crimson Leaves. This actually reminds me of a friend of mine and I collaborated on a character that he played for years in a GURPS-based D&D fantasy system. He was a dwarf. He was a faith healer. But here's the thing. He was in a mine. It collapsed. He lost his hand because rocks crushed it. And he was trapped for a while in the collapse. So he's bleeding to death over days very slowly. Yeah. And he started to hallucinate like crazy. And he believes in his hallucination so fervently that he can faith heal based on a delusion. Yeah. Right. So he ended up creating a god because of it. Because what he would do is he'd be like, I think, was it in your game, Landfear? Or was that Mike's game? I think it was Mike's. All right. So he had believed in this god, Landfear. So he believed in this god so, authentically that he could heal the wounded. So he started doing this and then subsequently getting followers to believe in a god that doesn't exist. Yeah. And over time, they ended up creating a god within the context of the
That would work in
weird.
my world, not exactly the way they would think it would, but because in my world, gods are really, there's very few of them. Mm-hmm. And they play the roles in pantheons. So it's the same gods who are, the Greek gods, are the Roman gods, are the Norse gods, are the Japanese gods. Ingardul. It's the same core group of people. Mm-hmm. And they will take on different roles that fit into the culture because they're trying to gain the maximum number of believers. The more believers they have, the more powerful they are.
It makes me think of, what was it? Sandman. How they show up differently to different people.
Yeah. And it's very much that kind of notion where, the god of order for this culture is the god of death for that culture, which is the god of life for the other culture. And
it's all the same dude.
And it's really the same being behind all of it. Mm. And because he's just trying to maximize his followers. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of at the god level of politics, which doesn't really take place in my fiction. Except in my head.
Do they have to be, do they have to show up similarly in with it? So you could be like the god of chaos in one and something that's diametrically different. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying like I'm the god of chaos here and the god of order here. Those are opposite sides of the same coin. Maybe.
I mean, a different culture might see it that way. Yeah.
That's fine. That makes sense. But what I'm saying is like, okay, well, in this culture, I'm the god of war. Mm-hmm. In this culture, I'm the god of harvest, which are very different. Yeah. So could that occur?
It could. And here's the thing, though. It's because it's about belief. And that's one of the major driving things in my universe is belief. And so you could try and be any god you want to for that culture. Like, I want to be a major god. I'm always the minor god. I'm going to be the major god of this new culture.
Okay.
And if you pull it off, the thing is, you are who you are. So the thing is, you accept certain kinds of things, and you can't change who you are. Mm-hmm. You might try, and you maybe even pull it off for a while, but ultimately your true colors shine through.
Okay.
And that's a minor that once major god is now sort of pushed aside and no longer used.
You're really not a major god.
No, you're just a jerk.
Your role is minor god. And you'll stay minor god.
I'm always minor god.
It's like going to a new school and being the cool kid for the first couple weeks. And then people realize, oh, no, you are a nerd.
Oh wait, that's your dad's motorcycle.
Yeah. Oh, you're nowhere near as cool as we thought. Yeah. Go hang out with the chess club and the AV kids.
Yeah.
They're better. They're better kids. So, all right. So we've covered extra magical, innate, and learned.
Learned. Let's just learn.
I like learned magic better.
Okay, we'll
that's
call
how
it
it sound.
An extra learned.
Extra learneder. It's learneder magic.
Yeah, but the thing to keep in mind, if you're creating a system, besides the name know what the cost is. How do you perform the magic so it's consistent? And it could be it's at an abstract level probably, or it's whatever you want. And the thing is, don't get worried if people call it trite. Think about what your avatar likes.
I think it always comes back to the same word whenever we're talking about a system or something that's going to govern the way a given thing behaves in your universe. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Yeah. That doesn't mean it has to show up as consistently. If you understand what's going on in the background, that's fine. Because there's stuff that
you have to present it consistently when it comes up.
No. That's not what I mean. I mean, you might present it in a way that it might only seem consistent to you because you know the rules the reader doesn't.
Yes.
So
I think we're saying the same thing.
I think we're saying opposite things.
No, I think we're saying the same thing.
Well, go ahead. You explain it the way you think it.
So for me, the key is that if, you have this sun god who's a loving, all nice god in a desert culture, which makes no sense because there's no water. The sun has destroyed all life, and you interact with that god. Mm-hmm. You need to do it in a way that is consistent and believable of why you think he's nice. So you need a story to make that work.
Okay.
But the thing is, then you can't have that god behave in a completely abnormal way and have them think about that god the same way.
Yeah, but see, I'm going a different road.
Okay.
I think we're talking apples and oranges here.
Yes, we are.
What I mean is you might have something in your fiction show up as inconsistent. Mm. What I'm saying is that doesn't matter as long as what's going on in the background is consistent with whatever rules you've created, whatever magical system you've created. So you might know it. Mm-hmm. I think that you should eventually maybe not reveal the system, but at least show the reader, not like pull them behind the curtain, but at least allow them at some point to understand why it has been consistent if it doesn't show up that way.
Yeah.
So... And that's the point of the system in the first place.
Yeah, and that will actually show up in my first novel series or whatever, because I'll start introducing magic in one way, and then I'm going to start layering in a second form of magic. Mm-hmm. It'll start off with people who have learned magic, and you'll start to understand that.
Learn it or magic. Learn it or magic.
And then there'll be an innate mage that gets wrapped in, and it won't seem right to the readers. But then as you come on, you'll start to learn more about the world because of the difference. And that's a lot of times the way series will work is it's like you build this whole idea of the way the world works and everything is fine. And then to do the sequel, you sort of break something.
Yeah, break something. And then in the trilogy, you have to contradict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's really not a contradiction. It's just it wasn't important in the first book.
Well, or like a friend of ours who I think that her editor said to her about the third book is you have to tell the reader something that was not you have to take something that was in the first book and completely contradict it, make it look wrong, but there's a new right because of a rule they didn't know.
It's all the same thing.
And it's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So science has magic. You've got illusion written up there, and I love illusions. There's 2 L's in that word, right?
There are 2 L's in that word.
Yeah. But that's not what you have written there.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I-L-L. Yeah.
No, that's you have ILU fish hook lightning bolt. It might be an I after that. Another U, and I'm not real sure. That's a tilde, maybe.
It's a Matilda.
It's a Matilda. No, a tilde. Like in Matilda. Spanish.
Yeah, tilde. I call it Matilda because it's a name in Spanish.
Gotcha.
Too clever for you.
Oh yes, you're too clever for me. Definitely. No, it's
you can't read.
I can't read that. That's not written. Anyway, so science as magic illusion. Now, are you talking about stage magicianry?
Oh, for that, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So essentially, science as magic is an idea. It's
mechanical magic.
Yeah. So it's like you build stuff, and that stuff does magic stuff. So like in steampunk, shit fly because of magic. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what you say in the book besides it's magic.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's science is magic.
Ships don't fly. There's nothing aerodynamic to support the fact that this thing is leaving the ground.
It's actually probably the worst shape, or not a good shape for something to fly.
Mm.
It's probably a pretty bad. It's great for floating, not so good for flying. Mm-hmm. But
there's a sail. Sail catches winds. That's not enough to pull it.
Well,
that's not enough to break the bonds of gravity. No.
It'd be one really good sail.
It's a gigantic sail, teeny boat.
Actually, once you're atmosphere, you gotta want to catch solar.
Oh yeah, solar sails, sure. That's different though. We're not.
That's so realistic. I'm like, yes,
yeah.
But no, it's just the idea where there's this illusion, of your stereotype for your mage goes from the guy with the beard that's 70 feet long and has a hat that's 70 feet tall and a really big staff, or
so you wouldn't be able to see.
wand. So
if you were standing over top of him, you wouldn't be able to see the beard because it's the same length as the hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, it'd be all wrapped around his feet because it's so long.
Right.
So
but if the hat's 70 feet out, you wouldn't be able to see the beard.
No, because it's up.
It's straight up. So it's like a gigantic dunce cap.
A giant dunce cap with
a little kink at the top. All right.
And you wouldn't be able to see
Does
him.
Bigger hat mean wiser wizard?
Yes.
Okay.
The wisdom level would be so high on that wizard that you wouldn't be able to actually see him because he'd be it'd be like looking at God.
I see.
It's just blind you.
Okay. Too much wisdom. There's too much wisdom.
Well, he knows everything.
Wow. You can just feel the wisdom off of him.
Yeah, but essentially, your mage stereotype will go for something like that more to.
You need to say that slower because I have no idea what you said.
Idea what I just said,
and I don't think that listeners would have understood that.
Okay,
either.
so the stereotype will move from what we just described as a wizard,
like the Gandalf,
to like was it Dr. Brown from
Back to the Future?
Back to the Future.
Okay,
that might be more of a stereotypical mage in.
A steampunky
kind of world.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that's how you should build your characters, but I'm just saying it's about science. And it's science with the capital S and the 2 or 3 exclamation points at the end, science.
Science!
Science, yes.
Science that does stuff that science doesn't do.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last one's illusion, where it's all fake. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And this technology can be used with as well, too, because I can create a device that will allow me to chuck a fireball from my hand.
Yeah. And again, great movie reference. Watch The Illusion. Not The Illusionist. The Prestige.
The Prestige.
Watch The Prestige.
Okay. There was a good one I saw, too. Was it The Illusionist?
Well, The Illusionist is the one that takes place. It's older. Well, they both take a place in older. They're both period pieces. Yeah. The Illusionist is in an older period. It's with Jessica Biel, Ed Norton, some other dude. I can't remember who the third guy is. The Prestige is Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, David Bowie actually plays Tesla. Bowie, I know you like to say Bowie. David Bowie plays. See, if you're going to do it, you got to put the accent on it. David Bowie, it plays Tesla in that movie, and Michael Caine is also in that.
And I might have to blame Jim for saying David Bowie because I think he used to.
He did. I knew that sounded familiar to me,
and I think that's why it's stuck in my head now. And whenever I think of it,
I couldn't think of why that sounded familiar to me. I don't think I've heard Jim say that in probably 7-8 years.
Yeah. But
David Bowie.
It's boot time.
It's a boot time. Okay. So science has magic, illusionary magic, mechanical magic, trickery.
Yeah.
It's not magic, it's mechanics.
And the great thing is, if you don't believe it's convincing, watching a good stage magician in real life, especially, because that's when you really believe. On TV, you're like, yeah, they're just doing camera tricks or whatever.
Watch street magicians impress me because they have to do stuff on the fly.
Yeah. It's funnier. There was a show for a while that was actually showing it from the wrong perspective on purpose.
So you could see.
So you would see the trick.
Yeah.
And you would see this basic street magic, and the people who are watching it are just like, oh my goodness, how could you do that? And you're just like watching, and it's like they're throwing it over
some
their shoulder.
Simple thing, yeah.
It's some simple thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, watch a magician, a stage one. I mean, on TV you can do camera tricks.
There's all kinds of stuff that they can do.
But it's more impressive in real life, and I love being lied to that way. It's awesome.
Yeah. Me too.
But when you watch it, and it is reality, and people might even believe it's real. You could play it in so many different ways where there are mages, but they're all fake. They're all liars. But it's just a different way to do magic. It doesn't have to be real.
Lord of Illusions. There's another good movie.
That was the one I was thinking.
That's the one you're thinking of?
Movie.
Yeah. Where
you were saying The Illusionist, but it was the Lord of Illusions.
Lord of Illusions, where he's like, and they touch on that in The Prestige, where they say, well, he's an illusionist. Well, what do you mean? Well, you called him a magician. So what's the difference? Well, illusionists do illusions. It's a trick. and magicians do it for real.
Mm-hmm.
And they touch on that in The Prestige.
Yeah. And now, one thing to keep in mind is there are many different opinions on what is good magic system, what is a bad magic system. No matter what kind of magic system you come up with, there will be critics. Don't worry about it. It's ultimately what you enjoy doing and your avatar enjoys reading. You know, it could be, it's like, personally, at this point, I don't think I like reading books with D&D style spells being performed in them anymore. You know, it's just too, I have to sit down and memorize my spells for the day and then I can cast them. But there are people who do. Speaking
of avatars and critics, I want to throw something out there. If anybody, any of our avatars, anybody listening to the show, we've gotten some nice compliments about the format change, but Jeff and I are making a formal request of the audience. If you guys would give us a critique about how the show has changed, tell us what you do like about the show specifically and what you don't like about the show, just to, you know, give us a check-in. We make sure that we're delivering what we're intending on delivering.
And hopefully we've just done a studio upgrade, so our audio quality, I'm thinking, is going to be at a much higher level when it's done at this point. But I know it's been kind of shaky since the transition. I've not been very good at figuring out how to get it set up correctly. But once again, you know, more kinds of things you'd like to hear about or hear less about things, just let us know.
Yeah, we appreciate the feedback.
Maybe next episode.
Well, that's okay. It just thought of me because I just thought of it because you said avatar and critic. So, and
then we have to throw in a bonus magic system for my wife the producer, because she requested we bring up Harry Potter, and which is a very valid one to talk about because and her thing was it was the first one she interacted with where you were required to have an item to perform magic. You cast the magic.
I'm going to go with the word talisman.
A talisman. Yeah, it's a talisman.
Because talismans are a lot of times are required in shamanistic magic.
You know, I should come up with a fourth style magic because for me, I don't have a real.
I would think like a talisman.
Shamanism really, it's ultimately about talismans.
So, I would think that would come into play in multiples of them, but when it's a requirement. Because
it's weird, because the way they do it in Potter is they almost take the learned magic.
The learned.
They take the learned magic and the talisman magic and have one form of magic.
Like a talisman requirement.
It's a requirement for the learned magic.
And actually, you think about it, it's not just, we're referring, of course, to the magic wands that everyone has to, it's the wand that chooses the wizard, Harry.
That's right.
But
wand is so big.
If you think about it.
Sorry.
You had to throw that in there. If you think about it, it wasn't just wands in that. Like, they used talismans all over the place. Like, you remember the portcullis, the boot. And, of course, there was all kinds of magical items. Yeah. So, I mean, talismans showed up left and right in that fiction.
Yeah.
So you could argue that it was all shamanistic magic that shows up as learneder magic. If you hadn't laughed, that would have come off seamlessly because I said it without laughing myself. But
well, I smell funny. Okay,
yeah. What works?
That's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
You know, or I'm saying what doesn't work really, and yes, that's all covered. The world building task for today is to go find a magic system that exists in your world, or make one up if one doesn't exist. Flesh it out. Figure out what are the costs. What does it take to perform the magic, and what are the limitations to the system?
For me, it's like math. So, what plus what equals magic? Like, what are you adding? Ritual and fatigue equals magic.
Yes.
Knowledge plus talisman equals magic, or however it works. Just understand your system.
Yeah.
Do we have a real world task for the day?
There are a couple different things that I want you to go check out. One, and I'll put a link to both of these in the show notes on garduel.com. Just go to the show notes for episode 89 and check out both of these links. One is to Atsiko Chemistry, ATSIKO. They have a great series of posts on magic and magic systems from a whole bunch of different angles. But if you're working on magic or thinking about magic, it's a great resource.
And this is a video series, or
no, it's actually like a blog series.
Articles.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the page I'll link to is a link to all of his stuff on this one subject.
Okay, great.
And then the other one is one of my friends from Twitter, and someone's been interviewed the show, Dean Frost. Go check out her work, The Known World, which is set in the known world. Which
I'm sorry, her?
Her, yes.
Did you just say Dean Frost?
No, DN.
Oh, DN. It sounded like you said Dean. I was going to say her name is Dean?
Oh, no, her name is, she always goes DN Frost.
Okay, DN Frost.
Yes. And I'll put a link up to her book, or actually go to her website, sign up for her newsletter. I'll put a link to that as well. She has a magic-heavy fantasy world, which most worlds aren't magic-heavy. They're usually much more restrictive to magic, but it'll let you see it at an extreme that isn't normally shown in a lot of other fantasy.
Okay. And I would certainly be remiss if I didn't throw out there, if you go to www.garduel.com/Amazon, it won't cost you anything else to buy your normal Amazon goods, and it'll help the show out. So if you have anything you want to purchase, like anything that we've mentioned on the show that I think Jeff's going to stick in the show notes. I'm not sure what, I mean, we mentioned.
We've talked about
some movies and Harry Potter, whatever stuff you want to get off of Amazon. If you go to garduel.com/Amazon, it'll just take you to Amazon, but it'll help us out.
Yeah. Or if you buy Dean Frost's book, which I will link, will be a link to Amazon. That's an affiliate link that will take you there as well.
So it's a link.
A link.
Okay.
Which is a song, I think.
A link is a song, you think?
It's Dean Martin.
I don't think it's Dean Martin.
Okay. All right. And the tease for next episode, yes. We are going to talk about our favorite fantasy works, and we are going to narrow it down to talk about just fantasy. And we'll probably occasionally have other ones too, where we cover science fiction,
tangents, because
we've technically kind of already covered apocalyptic favorites plus Waterworld in 3 episodes.
I wouldn't call those fantasy though.
No, I'm saying is like what other types of genres around world building. Like,
yeah. So down the road, you're not talking in the very next episode.
No.
All right. Well, you're tangenting in the tease.
Okay. So why don't we redo the tease?
Tell me. No, you don't have to redo the tease. Just close it down.
Wow, you're a jerk. And as always, make sure to go to garduel.com. That's GARDUL.com for the show notes. It'll be under podcasting, World Builders Anvil. That's a great place to get all of the information from the episode that you've just listened to, and to see all the resources that we've talked about in this episode. Thanks for joining us this episode of the World Builders Anvil. Please be sure to rate and review us in iTunes, and please help get the word out to your friends about our show. And join me, Jeffrey W. Ingram at garduel.com, to see the progress of my world and learn why I made the choices I did. And please contact me and let me know the topics you would love to hear in the future. Now strike while the myth rolls high.